In this movie, we're going to have a look at how we can draw in perspective. And if you open up Perspective Grid Superhero Start, you'll see I've created this nice perspective here for my Marvel superhero. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is select a rectangle. So I'm going to select the rectangle tool, and I'm going to move over here to my little widget here. And I'm actually going to double click on that perspective tool, which opens up this dialog box, which allows me to reposition it back to the top left, which is where I prefer it to be. And I'm going to move my other tools underneath. Now, the keyboard shortcuts are Shift P and Shift V for perspective tool and perspective selection tool. And we'll have a look at those as we move through. But for now, what I want you to do is select the rectangle tool and then just move over the artwork, move on to the perspective grid tool. And if you have your guides switched on, so make sure you have smart guides switched on, you should see a little indicator telling you when you are on the grid and you're about to start drawing. And then you can draw a plane in perspective. And notice it creates this rectangle in perspective. Now, what I'm going to do is just colour it so we can see it a little bit more clearly. So there you can see I've easily drawn a rectangle in perspective. So what about if we want to draw one on this side? Well, if I start drawing again, notice it stays within that same perspective. So I'm going to undo that, and instead I'm going to click on this plane here. And that allows me to draw on this plane in perspective. So I can draw this side of the building. Okay? Fantastic. And then if I want to put a roof on the building, I can click on the bottom plane. Now, it might seem counterintuitive to click on there, but that is the horizontal grid, and that is where we click on. And that's going to create a horizontal plane. Now, if you get it wrong and you create it too small, that's not a problem. We can adjust it, but don't use the selection tool. If you use the selection tool, you'll lose and break the perspective. So what you want to do is get into the habit when you're using the perspective grid tool of using this tool instead. And Shift V will select it, and it allows you to scale in perspective. So we can adjust the scale however much we want. So it's really easy to create these geometric shapes. Now, you don't have to create rectangles. You can do something really bizarre like choose the star tool, choose a different fill color. Oops, make sure I haven't got that selected. So let's just Command click away from that to deselect it. So we'll choose a red fill color and we'll draw some stars on the roof. Okay, and they don't even have to, they could overlap the roof if you want. Go mad. You know, you don't have to draw buildings just because it's a perspective tool. You could just use this to create some nice perspective patterns, for example. Or make it look as if things are falling on top of the roof. Now you'll notice if I draw outside the grid, sometimes it can just go a bit ski-whiff. So just be a little bit careful about how you're drawing. It can be a little bit flaky at times. Okay. Now incidentally, if I want to draw something behind the grid that's not like, say, I don't know, a background of some sort, then what I can do is select the tool that I want to use and then click on No Active Grid. And now when I draw, I won't draw with perspective, but it will place it in the front. So I really need to then open up my Layers panel. So then I would just pull it down the layer stack so it's sitting behind all the other layers. And now it places it there as if it is the sun setting. So let's choose a nice orange colour for the sun setting behind our building with stars falling on it. Now, if I select the ellipse tool and I select one of the planes, it will draw it in perspective though. So you'll notice that I can draw circles in perspective as well. So have a little play with that. Not all tools are supported in perspective. Obviously, if I select this plane here, for example, and choose something like the eraser tool, that's not going to be supported in perspective. So have a play with the primitive shapes and some of the other elements and see what you can come up with drawing in perspective with the perspective grid tool. And if you want more information about what's supported and what's not supported, you can check the wonderful online help for more details.